Thanks, Balaji, for the short introduction, although almost nobody heard anything. What we're going to do today in collaboration with Vanakkam Germany is give you a bit of insight on how to invest in real estate and properties here in Germany. We'll walk you through a couple of things. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session, which in most cases, we don't end until the last question is asked and answered. So what are we going to do today? We're going to discuss shortly who we are, so you know who is speaking to you. We're going to have a look at what kind of strategies are available while investing into real estate, specifically for Germany. We're going to have a look at risk and opportunities. We're going to have a look at ROI and taxes. We're going to have also a look at a real life example, because we always hear that Ajay, we are not able to find a property which is suitable, and we want to show that that's not true. And we'll also have a look at eligibility for each and every one.
Yeah, sorry, screen wasn't moving. Okay, yeah, nice to have you here in our meeting. My name is Sebastian, 40 years of age, born, brought up in Germany, and now I can look back to 23 years in this industry. First, I started to be a banker at a Sparkasse, worked as a loan consultant there, then later on worked as a real estate agent. So I have a very big experience also in negotiating and talking about the price, all that stuff. And yeah, I also studied real estate beside my job, and yeah, now I'm living near Cologne in my own house, and I have some other properties which I own as a landlord and rent out, so some experience on that as well.
My name is Ajay. I'm 44 years old, born and brought up here in Germany, although you can't hear it really from the accent. I lived in India for 5 years, married, got 2 wonderful kids, one of which just brought me a thumbs up. So that's what I'll be sipping throughout the session. I live near Cologne, just like Sebastian. I own the house I live in, and I've also got multiple properties as investments. And just like Sebastian, I'm also a certified home loan consultant.
Great. So if you start in this whole thing, first step is to check out what you're looking for. Do you want to buy the property for your own use or to rent it out as an investment? For sure, today we talk about specifically on the part of investment, but just a short sum up of that topic is if you want to buy it for your own use, location is the key. Very important in all topics, you will see further. And do you feel comfortable in the property, even in the neighborhood, because you need to live there for the next, let's say, 10 years at least. Check out the neighbors, and also taxation is part there. But today we will concentrate on real estate as investment. So there also location is the key, because you can't change that. Yeah, most of the stuff you can change, but location you can't. So that is the most important thing you need to check, maybe in advance, that you think about what location you want to invest. There are different point of views on that. Do you want to invest in the same city you're living, or maybe 1 hour by car? Some people invest 500 kilometers away, but then a visit there will be a little bit expensive in cash and in time as well. Will the tenants feel comfortable there is also important. Yeah, even if you will not feel comfortable, the tenants should feel comfortable to stay there for a longer period of time, maybe. Yeah, that's also important. You need to check that. The real estate investment is driven by the risk, reward, and flexibility ratio. So it's not that important how long everyone stays there. It's much more important how is the ROI. Yeah, so the return on your investment, what you invest, how long it does take to get it back. Yeah, taxation is quite different to own use property, because if you buy the property for investment and you just rent it out, then you need to keep it for 10 years. After 10 years, you don't need to pay tax on the benefits you got. You know, if you sell it with big different winning on that, you don't need to pay tax after 10 years. That's quite different. So you should wait that time if you have winnings on it. Yeah. Okay.
The 10-year part is, that's why all investors look at a 10-year fixed interest rate. They don't really care about 5 or 15. They always choose a 10-year rate, because after that, they're as flexible as they want to be, selling or holding the house. That explains a bit why everybody's pushing for a 10-year period. Right, now, let's have a look at what kind of strategies could we employ here to gain profits for ourselves, either on short or mid or on long term. Now, if you're looking at different strategy, and we'll have a look at 3 different ones. We'll be looking at a very long-term game where the current cash flow is not as important. We have seen, I have one in my portfolio as well, where the property is not cash flow positive, where I'm looking at the opportunities because of growing city. I know for sure that the city is going to grow, that more population is going to come into that city because of proximity to large employers. I know that the value of the property will rise in 10 years, right? So I'm not really looking at a short-term gain. I don't really expect 5, 10, or 50 or 100 euros a month into my pocket. I'm rather looking at the 10-year term and a long game here. Second thing is involvement. In those apartments, I don't really get involved much. I have a bit of hassle at the beginning, searching for the property, discussing on pricing and terms and conditions with the seller, getting it financed, and perhaps searching for a tenant once in a while. But once the tenant is settled, I get a call perhaps once every 6 months, once every year, if at all. I have a property where which I've put on rent 4 years back. I've not heard from them since, apart from them sending out the monthly rent on a monthly basis, right? But here also, I'm not looking to add much of a value. I buy, almost rent as is, and that's it. And I take my sleep for the next 10 years, hopefully. In most of the cases, we're looking here at apartments. We're looking at rising housing markets, just like I explained earlier. I know that the city is going to rise. I know that population is going to rise. I know that new employers are coming in. I also know that the price seems a bit expensive now, but I know the property value is going to rise. Hence, I'm looking at 10-year gain. Second option, which we have, is a cash flow driven investment, right? Now, having a look at cash flow involvement value add in properties, here I'm looking at short-term gains. Here I'm looking at that the property is either cash flow neutral right now, or at least will be cash flow positive in the next 2 or 3 years by increasing the rent, or by changing stuff, by adding value, by putting in a kitchen, or by furnishing it, or whatever, right? Some kind of value add, or creating parking spots, or creating 2 apartments out of 1. So there are a lot of options to add value to an apartment and look at short-term gains, plus the long-term ones, right? That's on a separate note. That's there always. But here I'm more looking at properties where I can get, even if there's only $5 or 10 or 50 on a monthly basis, into my pocket. So rent minus all the costs minus EMI, something needs to be left over. Here my involvement is a bit higher. I already mentioned that I put in a kitchen or I furnish it. These things cost money. These things cost time and effort, right? Of course, I can outsource everything, but there's no fun in that, to be honest. So typically, I get the furniture delivered, I get it set up, or I set it up myself, hang on a TV, put in the sofa and whatnot, get the kitchen delivered, get it set up, and then I can increase the rent in order to generate a bit of cash flow. So here I'm looking at adding value either on my own or through outsourced parties. Typical properties for this are apartments as well as multi-story buildings, because there you can, multi-story buildings, you can add more value on your own. You don't need to get this signed off by homeowners association, etc. And the strategy is a good fit for under rent properties, which translates to the rent is pretty low. And by adding value, by increasing the rent, either by just increasing the rent or by adding value and then increasing the rent, you can create cash flow for your own. And so-called value properties, where you believe people should be paying more rent for that particular apartment. Could also mean that there is a tenant in which has been there for a longer time, and you know that he or she is going to move out. I had a client of mine who checked on whether the tenant is still happy or not. And then the tenant said, look, I'm moving out on my own in a couple of weeks and months, so please put it on rent, right? You can always search the new tenant. So there my client could actually get on a second page, on a second, a second tenant, and could increase the rent by that. And then we'll have very short-term gain. We are not looking at long-term gains at all. We're looking at fix and flip. So you're buying an apartment or a house, adding a lot of value, getting it modernized, revamping it fully or partly, adding value thereby. You have a huge involvement there, but also a huge short-term gain. We're looking at tens of thousands of euros with one deal, right? But you'd need to find the house or apartment, fix it or get it fixed, and then be able to sell it at a margin. Here we're only focusing on the value add you're putting in. Hence, there's a huge involvement from your side. If you have the network, if you have the connections, if you have the handyman, the craftsman, the plumber, the electrician, and you have a good deal coming in, that's the best way to make money off real estate in a very, very short term. Right. Let's have a look at the options which we have, and I'll pick up a couple of options while we go ahead. We'll start with the healthcare properties, and Sebastian already mentioned the risk, reward, and flexibility ratio, which is solely based on ROI. Right, the more risk you put in, the more reward you might get, and the more flexibility you'll have. What I'm seeing, or what we are seeing in the market, is that there are a lot of service apartments being sold right now, a lot of healthcare properties being sold right now at an ROI, a promised ROI of X, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6%, doesn't really matter. Typically, if you have a look at those contracts in detail, you will see that there is the ROI for you of anywhere negative to 3%, and that's it. If you have all the bricks and puzzle pieces, if you put them together in the contract, you'll see that the ROI is not that great. You'll have less risk because people are promising you, either notarized or not, but there's a contract in place promising you some kind of riskless investment. I don't believe that's the case. We'll see later why. Then you have apartments which are non-furnished, Eigentumswohnungen in German. That's the typical way in Germany to buy and sell an apartment, or sorry, buy and rent an apartment. The typical ROI there is between 5 and 7%. We'll have later an example where this is exactly the case. Next up would be apartments which are furnished. Either you already buy them furnished or you furnish them yourself. Because I mentioned that value add thing earlier on, we have a bit higher ROI. The typical tenants would be expats like us who come here first time in Germany, the first couple of weeks. They do not want to have, or they don't want to buy furniture. They don't want to buy a new TV set, etc. They don't have those things, right? And they don't know whether they're going to stick around for a longer time. Hence, they most probably go for furnished apartments. The ROI there is between 5 and 15%, anywhere there, just to give you a glimpse of what's possible. Then you have shared apartments. The new German word I learned is co-living, WG in German, or Airbnbs, in which you have a shared apartment of 2, 3, 4, 5 people sharing the same apartment, sharing the same bathroom and kitchen. There, typically, the landlords take a lump sum from each tenant, let's say 500 euros times 4, 2,000 euros as warm rent, as opposed to, let's say, 1,000 euros if you just have a non-furnished apartment putting on rent. Here, your involvement is more. You need to outsource or do on your own the cleaning, the handover, new contracts. Typically, the tenancy is not that long. The duration of the contract is not that long. We're looking at 6 or 12 months because students are only living there for, let's say, 24 months or 36 months. And after that, you're pretty sure that there's going to be a change. There's going to be attrition. The apartments non-furnished, you have got tenancies of 7, 8, or 10 years even, right? The best case from risk-reward flexibility ratio are multi-apartment buildings, multi-story buildings, which you fully own. German Mehrfamilienhaus, in which you're getting a return of 15 to 40%, and that is very, very conservative. In my own portfolio, I've got a house where I've got increase of, I don't know, 35, 40%, 45% year on year if I look back the last 7 years. There I've got a huge flexibility because I do not need any sign-offs from a homeowners association to change anything outside or inside of the house. I can create parking spots. I can increase rents like I feel like. I can change the color of the doors. That's all on me. I can rent out parts of the garden as well, right? So all these things you can only do if you own the full building. Top of that, you can actually drive and influence taxation a bit. You are not bound by the sign-offs from the homeowners association, as mentioned. If they would say we need a new roof, well, then we need a new roof. If I own the full building, I can say, well, I don't want to invest the first 3 years. I only want to invest after year 4, just to have a better view on taxation, and also look at, well, this year I earned a lot of money. I don't want to earn this year. I want to spend a lot to reduce my taxable income. So I want to invest this year instead of next year. So you can drive your taxation there a bit if you're owning the full house. Now, coming back to the healthcare properties and service apartments. People, the sellers, they promise you riskless investment or risk-free investment in some cases even. What you should be looking out for there is, would any other bank finance this apart from the one which he's suggesting? That's a very good indication on is the property really worth it, yes or no? In most cases, it is not. Those properties are overpriced. That is part one. Part two, if you're looking at the ones who are managing that part of the property, let's say it's a healthcare property where somebody's promising a return of 4.5% or 5% even, they're promising you to give you a certain rental income over the next 10 or 20 years. And they're saying, look, this property management company will give you the rent for the next 20 years at 5% interest rate or whatever. Let's say 500 euros. But the huge risk here is, what if the property management files for bankruptcy? The first thing the new company will do, the buyer of that property will do, is reduce your rent. Otherwise, they'll say, we are not going in at all. So if that happens, your ROI from 4% will become minus 4%. You'll not be able to sell the apartment because everybody will look at the new rent. They don't want to have negative cash flow. Hence, they say, well, let's not buy the property. And I'm not taking this out of the blue. Convivo Group is a group of healthcare property management company which filed for bankruptcy, I think 2 quarters back, right? In North Rhine-Westphalia, where we live, they had 4 properties. 3 of them were gone to a new investor. 1 is still on sale. So everybody needed to move out. There's no rent for the last 6 months. So there you're just paying money. So please be very, very careful. Please read the contracts. If you really want to invest in such stuff, beware of the risks there. Now, the question we always get at least twice a day in our calls is, Ajay, I found this property, but the ROI is negative. There are no properties which are good enough for a positive cash flow. And Sebastian and me will say, no, that's not true.
Yeah, because today we can show up one property as an example, which is on the market. In a cooperation, we can offer it, and it's off market, so it's not offered on ImmoScout, ImmoWelt. It's just for our customers. So let's have a look on that one, because it's quite interesting. On the numbers, we go through the facts and figures and also the taxation part. Here we have 2 apartments in Eschborn, which is northern from Frankfurt. So very close to Frankfurt, and because of that, also very interesting to the major employers we have there. You look directly to Deutsche Bank, Deutsche Börse, and we have already mortgaged a property there, financed a property there, and yeah, the guy can look on his employer, let's say. Yeah, so that's maybe that is not nice, but he wanted to have that, and yeah, it's really interesting location. So let's look quite deeper into it. The price, which is already negotiated from our side, is 325,000 euros for 90 square meters, and the current rent is 1,700 euro, which is the cold rent, yeah, not with all the additional costs you have. This is the one you got from the tenants on your account. And the small apartment is furnished part-wise, and the other one it's not. So it's a combination from the versions you heard from RJ, but we have a normal property, a normal apartment, which is rented out, not on a special time here. The tenants pay that rent for the last 5 years, I guess. So it's not a rise one, it's the normal one they pay, and they are very happy there. So yeah, that property is quite nice. And let's have a look on the ROI, and let's do a quick calculation on that one. So if we have a buying price of 325,000 euros, the ancillary cost, which need to be borne by the buyer, is 37,602 euros. That's the land transfer tax, that's the real estate agent fee, and the notary and legal fees. You know. The rent, I already told, per month is 1,700 euro. Per year, that's 20,400 euro. And the annual return will be divided through the buying price. So we have an ROI of 6.3%. So having a look on the EMI, the amount you need to pay for a mortgage for the property. This is just an example. Yeah, it might be different in your case if you dive deeper into it. Maybe you make it a bigger amount of repayment, but we just want to show that there are examples where you can have a positive cash flow. In this example, we calculate with interest rate of 4.5%, which is quite normal for our interest possibilities by now, and 1.5% repayment. So in addition, that's just 6%. And you see there's a gap. It's a small one, but it is a cash flow positive investment. So the rent you got will cover the principal, the interest, and the additional costs you have for property management, maintenance, repair fund. So yeah, under the line, that's possible. That's not possible with a lot of properties, as RJ told. I guess it's more than 2 times a day we get asked, and we check properties where it's just 2%, 3%. If you compare that to the, let's say, 6% EMI, we see, yeah, that's a really huge add of your cash on a monthly base you need to push. And yeah, that might be a good one in the long term, but yeah, by now, yeah, it's not the perfect one, let's say. Yeah. Don't know if Ajay wants to add, no, something, but let's start with the tax implications, because that's for sure. We get also asked on tax implications. Yeah, can I deduct when I buy a property for own use and all that? But most important is on investment, because for sure your rental income is reduced by the cost, yeah, reduced by the cost you have is the taxable income, yeah, where you need to pay taxes for. So in this example, we have the rental income of 20,400 euros. And we reduce that by the interest you pay, which is 4.5% of the mortgage we take, which is 14,625 euros. We can reduce that by the depreciation of the building value. Yeah, that's always important because you can depreciate just the building value. Yeah, so you need to reduce the buying price you pay by the value of the land part. Yeah, and on the remaining, which is the building value, you can depreciate 2%, which is 5,200 euros. Then parts of house geld are reduced by that rental income, which you pay to the management for, let's say, repair costs, maintenance, and all that stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of money you can reduce. And there are other costs for, let's say, gas that you drive over there, mobile phone calls. Yeah, so let's say it's 120 euros. So under the line, we have 565 euros in minus, which means that you can reduce, let's say you have 50K taxable income from your employer. Yeah, you can reduce that by 565 euros. So you pay less tax on your normal salary income. Yeah, so it has a additional positive point here. Yeah, for sure, in the end, if you have 1,000 euros left and you need to pay tax on that, it will be reduced by your personal tax class you have. Yeah, so under the line, this one is also interesting because you can reduce the taxes you pay on your salary. I guess, yeah, I talked about renovation costs, modernization costs, inventory, all that also needs to be mentioned, yeah, because in the nearer future, maybe you need to renovate the property, but this also gives you chances, yeah. In the building we talk about, there's one property which we saw, which is completely renovated. It looks like brand new and looks like double the value, yeah. So this also gives you chances because you might get higher rental income on that later on if you invest. Yeah, and inventory might be changed. So all that can also reduce your taxable income because you can always take that cost and reduce your rental income by that cost you have.
Right. So to sum it up, there are properties on the market. You just need to search. You might not find them on ImmoScout and ImmoWelt because as soon as properties hit there, all the off-market marketing was not successful by the broker because they do send those properties to their friends and loved ones, their inner circle. That's what we do as well, right? The broker in this case will not be publishing this on ImmoScout the next 2 or 3 weeks. Only if nobody in the circle buys the property will it make sense to actually publish this, and that's what everybody's doing, right? So properties are available. Now, apart from we don't find properties, how we find one, we always get the question on, am I eligible? I have a blue card, I have a PR, I'm not working, I'm a freelancer, I earn that much money, will I be financed such kind of a property? And the answer is, it depends. It doesn't depend on the blue card or the PR. It rather depends on how banks calculate your income and how banks calculate your expenses as well as the rental income of the property which you are buying. I'll give you 2 examples on, and also to showcase you that it's very much important to compare different banks at the same time. Because if one bank may say no, the other one say, well, welcome, and they'll open a bottle of champagne once you walk into the branch. Let's have a look at Bank 1. We'll have the income situation and the expenses and the bank totals, and they always say we need to have X amount left at the end of the month, otherwise we will not finance. So let's have a look. This person earns 4,500 euros net, either as a couple or alone, and in a certain case, the rental income here was 1,200 euros. So the total income was 5,700, and now there are costs of living expenses being deducted, 700 bucks, and the EMI for that particular property, in that case, it was 1,500 almost, and ancillary cost, property management cost of 240 euros. So all in all, the bank says, well, our total is 3,300. That's what we calculated. The second bank says, still the same net income, 4,500, but we are only acknowledging 75% of the rental income, which is only 900 euros. So the total income is not 5,700, but it's only 5,400. And here the bank also says, well, our cost of living lump sum is not 700 euros, but it's going to be 1,350 because of whatever, internal guidelines. Here, so the sum is not 3,300 euros at the end of the month, it's only 2,900. So the two major differences. One is the rental income. The one says I'm acknowledging 100%. The other bank says we are only acknowledging 75%. And you've got the lump sum for cost of living. The one is very aggressive. They say you only need 700 euros to live on. And the second bank says, well, we are very conservative. We believe you need at least around 1,400 euros. And hence, the total for each bank is totally different. The first bank may say everything, if you still have 3,000 euros at the end of the month, or 500 or 200 will be financing. The second bank may say, well, everything below X amount we are not financing, please choose another bank. It is too risky for us. So while the first one may say yes, the second bank may say no. And we have a few clients who come to us and say, Andrea, Sebastian, our bank said no, or my first consultant didn't find us a bank. Could you support us? Could you help us find a bank because we need that property, either as an investment or for own use, doesn't really matter. And that's where we help out and check different banks at the same time. So it makes very much sense to compare different banks, different offers from different banks.
So how to finance? If you find the right property, you want to buy it, how to find the best bank, the fitting bank, which fits your needs. There are several possibilities. First of all, for sure, you can check for your main bank, yeah, where you have your current account. For sure, they know you very good. Yeah, they know your spending and income situation. There you don't have a big hustle to check it out, and for them it's not a big hustle. For you, it's not a big hustle. You can just send over the documents from the property, talk to them, and they might give you a good offer because, yeah, maybe because you're a normal customer on their side. Maybe they just give you the normal one and not a competitive one because they think you don't compare. If you want to compare, one of the ways is to go to the banks in the area, your local Sparkasse, Volksbank, don't know, yeah, different ones available by now, or you check on the web by yourself. You get in touch with them by yourself, but for sure they don't know you, so there are more requirements on all the documentation. You need to send them salary slips, your all the documents from your income, from your current account, etc. Yeah, so the hustle is the most on that, but you have negotiation power because, yeah, you can compare different offers. Third version you can go with is to talk to a home loan consultant like RJ and I am. They might, in our case, we have access to multiple banks. Yeah, it's 550 and more banks where you can sort, check out for the fitting offers, and that's quite easier than doing that by yourself because the home loan consultant just needs to get the infos from your ones and can compare all the banks in the system. Here. So the home loan consultant is the interface between the bank and the buyer. Yeah. So also you can check out for some problems, you can solve the problems. And in our case, it's a guided procedure. So guiding you through the whole process, talking with the seller, maybe talking to the agent, caring for some documents, checking out the documents as well. Not all the home loan consultants do that. We do that because it's very important to check all the documents for errors, for things you will not check because you're not that experienced maybe. And even after you went to the notary, yeah, there might show up some things. And I guess RJ and we have some customers who step back 1 year later and ask us, and we love to help out then. Yeah, so you can check out by yourself. If you go with us, if you check out with us, it's cost free. Yeah, so you don't need to pay for our service. So it's a win-win situation because you don't have hassle, and we can check for the best options on your side.
Just to be very fair and clear, we don't get paid by you, we get paid by the bank. We get a commission from the bank, no matter which bank you finance with. So we don't really care whether you want to finance with a blue or red or a green logo. That's on you. We'll guide you though. We'll present our pros and cons per each offer so that you can decide. Right, so we have frequently asked questions. A couple of them we already touched upon, but Sebastian, can I invest as a blue card holder?
Short answer is yes. We know exactly which banks do blue card holders. Not all banks do, yeah, but we do which banks do. So yeah, quick answer, yes.
Right. Can I avail multiple loans for multiple investments?
In general, you can, but it depends on the situation. Yeah, if you buy you want to buy 6 apartments and all of them are cash flow negative, this might be a problem. Yeah, it depends on the case, but in general, that's possible.
And does the property need to be in my city where I live?
It does not need. It also depends on your wishes. Yes, maybe you don't want to live in the same city where your tenant is living. Also depends on the size of the city. Yeah, if it's Berlin West and you're living Berlin East, you might never see your tenant when you don't visit. But yeah, it's recommended to check out properties which maybe are not that far away, because if there show up problems and you want to care for by yourself, then it's much easier if it's in the same city or nearby or reachable by car within, let's say, 30 to 60 minutes, but also depends on your wishes. And if you have a management which is checking out all that stuff, it's also possible to buy 500 kilometers away. It depends on your situation, how you like to do it.
And what about furnished rentals? So furnished apartments.
Yeah, that's a special topic, because yeah, you need to look how the situation is. Is this rent you get from the tenants, is this sustainable? Do you get that in the future? So if you check the ROI and there's let's say 30 euros a square meter on this property, you need to check out if that's possible in 2 years or 3 years also. Yeah, so there are different laws on that. They can change. So this is a special topic, but in the end, with the furnished rental, you get more rent normally per square meter, but you also have more hustle in the furniture renewals, and normally the tenants change much more often than if you have an unfurnished rental. So how can we help? Maybe I talked about that in some minutes ago. Yeah, we support you. We do assessment on the property. Yeah, we check out for pros, cons. Some of our clients have 2 or 3 flats, and they ask, "Hey, Sebastian, which is the best one?" Yeah, I don't need to live there, but I can guide you. Maybe there are pros on that one, pros on the other one, and yeah, you need to choose, but I can help you to figure out what are the pros and cons. Yeah, RJ always does that as well. So yeah, that's a huge part of our job, I guess, to check out which is the right property you will live in the next 5 or 10 years, or even in investment, because yeah, we are investors. We are very experienced on that, so we can also tell you, hey, might be that location is not the best, or might be one of 2 apartments in just one house is not the best. There are a lot of reasons going for it, or maybe check out for the next one. Yeah. In the end, our main job is to take care for your home loan. Yeah, checking out the banks and making the whole thing possible. And in addition, we can help you out with personal loans as well. If you want to buy a car or something else, maybe invest in another country, that's all that is possible with our help. Can contact us with the form we provide, right? It's dropped in the chat, I guess, and it's working. And we check out everything by video call normally, yeah, because then you can check together on the advert, etc. video call, or for sure face to face if you are near to us, yeah, or might be we meet up in Berlin, yeah, we check out. I'm excited to meet some of you guys in Berlin maybe in September, and yeah, for sure you can reach out to us on WhatsApp or Telegram.
All right, now, just like I promised in the beginning, it's time for questions. We'll be looking at the chat first, and then we'll also have the opportunity to have